Hello and welcome to your Patreon story reading, and I'm doing a video today as well as the audio so that you can see. I'm reading from one of my not for resale what's the word, proof copies. Thank you, proof copies of my book Tales of Old Ireland Retold, Ancient Stories Retold for Today by Lora O'Brien. And we are going through this book, and these are the stories that I would have originally written for one of my Patreon rewards, and I decided I was going to go through them and read them out and give a little bit of commentary maybe. And we are on the true tale of Tailtiu, and I particularly like this one because I have an affinity with Tailtiu, and so Tailtiu was Lou's foster mother way back. And she was one of the Firbolg. She was a Firbolg queen and very much a sovereign queen of Ireland, or certainly of her part of Ireland. And I would have had a very early relationship with her. When I was a baby pagan, I was asked to play the goddess Tailtiu. I was only 18, and I was asked to play the goddess Tailtiu because a woman called Chris Thompson, who many of you now will know from story archaeology fame. Well, and if you don't know story archaeology, go over and check Chris and Isolde's fantastic podcast and blog at storyarchaeology.com, because they're amazing. And I've known Chris for a very long time, and Isolde as well, obviously. And yeah, so Chris asked my high priestess at the time, Barbara Lee, if she knew anybody who would be available and interested and able to play the goddess Tailtiu in a dramatic reenactment, which was actually an activist protest because the landowner at the time was trying to take down one of the mounds at Tailtiu, which is the site of the fair of Tailtiu. So you can see I was thrown in the deep end. I was only with Barbara's group maybe even a couple of months at that point. And what I didn't know at the time was that so we did full, there was reenactors there. There was, I had a herald. There was, Chris was doing the dramatic reading, but they had also invited the press. So I ended up on one of our popular TV shows nationwide, which is kind of like a news show that goes around every week and does, I don't even know if they still exist, but they did at the time anyway. For a long time they went around, and I'm pretty sure they're still going. Anyway, went around and did like little snippet pieces from around the countryside of interesting things that were going on, and this obviously qualified as an interesting thing that was going on. So I was recorded I was recorded as the goddess Tailtiu. And when I moved online after a while and started moderating one of the biggest witchcraft sites on the internet at the time, that was my name. Tailtiu was my screen name, Tailtiu, and it earned me the nickname Chewy. So if anybody remembers from back in that, there was a London-based witchcraft website and organization. Don't even know if they're still running either. I haven't looked them up in a long time. But yeah, so I have old connection. I have history with Tailtiu, and then it started a personal relationship, obviously, with her, and that has continued in a very light way through. I still very much kind of honor and respect the goddess, but haven't done a huge amount of work with her for a long time. But let's call this an offering to Tailtiu and in memory of the care that I got and the connection that I got all those years ago. She watched them come, nervous now on the day of beginning, a fortnight before Lunasa for the Éanach Tailtiu. Nervous for the work that awaited her, as she would tell the tale of Tailtiu. This year was the first she was ready. On the north bank of the river of black water did they gather, coming from every side of the island, and from over the sea even. The cousins from Alba would venture the waves to make it home too for the fair. People already garnered the marriage hollow with early blooms, though the main flowers would come with August and the turning of harvest time. She knew the stables over at Knockija were already filled with the horses they'd brought, ready to run the races from there and finish at the heart of the fair. All the preparations were in place for the funerary games held in honour of the goddess, and there would be hurling, athletic, gymnastic, and equestrian clashes of all kinds, with running, long jumping, high jumping, throwing, spear casting, sword and shield contests, wrestling, boxing, handball, swimming, and of course the horse racing, chariot racing, spear jumping, slinging competitions, bow and arrow shows, and every sort of test to display the assembled physical endurance and skill. But not just that. The games had always included the tests of mind and crafting just as evenly. So there were board games, literary, musical, oratorical, and storytelling competitions, singing and dancing contests, tested rivalries between goldsmiths, jewelers, artificers in the precious metals, long-running contests between spinners, weavers, and dyers, and the makers of shields and weapons of war, with the bardic events some of the most competitive of all. And here was she, in all her unproven youth, being given the responsibility of telling the tale of Tailtiu, in whose honour the Aonach had been started and always held. Knowing she needed to stop watching and take a walk to soothe her stresses, she went where her legs would carry her. Down by the river and along its banks a while, till she had followed it round the first sharp curve, and the festival preparations were long out of sight. Walking on, she passed about 3 forks apace, and the river's black curves and flow had her calmed and centred. She realised then she came to the old barrow mound on the bend, and decided resting there would just be the grandest until she was right to return and get settled into the fair. The sun was high about the hill as she climbed the slight incline and settled on the gentle slope. She closed her eyes and warmed her bones well, and in her idle thoughts she hoped the sun's strength could beam down through the soil to warm the bones of the ancestor buried below. For that was the purpose of a barrow, to mark the grave of one who was important. Gurv Mahagat Makara. Starting at the sound of a voice so close, she opened her eyes to see a woman seated by her side, who had thanked her so and called her friend. But it wasn't the first time she'd met one such as this face to face, so to speak. For isn't it well known that the bardic ways are close to the other world, and that they open an easy gate to that life beyond? So she spoke to the woman, and knew her for who she was, the very Tailtiu, foster mother of Lu and queen of the Firbolg, whose tale she would come to tell. Never one to miss an opportunity, she asked for the story from source, then and there, and this is what she got to bring back to the Aonach fair. I came hither leading the Firbolg host to Tailtiu, after the high battle with the newcomers to this land. Tailtiu, it was a thicket of trees from Esker to Athdromnan, from the great bog, a long journey from the Seal to Ard Ashuda, Comer, Currach, Creeklinja, Ardmanay, where the spears used to be. The hounds of Carpra killed their quarry on the land of Tirpra, Mungarja. Great that deed that was done with the axe's help by me, the reclaiming of meadowland from the even wood by the daughter of my father, gentle Magmore. When the fair wood was cut down by me, roots and all, out of the ground, before the year's end it became Bregmac, it became a plain blossoming with clover. But it was great work, and not wholesome, truly. Is it to have a face glowing like the coal at the end of your work for the sake of woods or pride of timber? My heart burst in my body from the strain beneath my royal vest, and long was the sorrow, long the weariness as I lay in sickness after heavy toil. The men of the island of Erin to whom I was in bondage after that war, they came to receive my last behest. Feeble I was, but not speechless, and I told them in my weakness that they should hold funeral games to lament me, and that I would be buried in royal state with impressive druidical rites. And about this time I died, leaving behind the gift of the chief fair of noble Erin, a fair with gold, with silver, with games, with music of chariots, with adornment of body and of soul by means of knowledge and eloquence. A fair without wounding or robbing of any man, without trouble, without dispute, without reaving, without challenge of property, without suing, without law sessions, without evasion, and without arrest. A fair without sin, without fraud, without reproach, without insult, without contention, without seizure, without theft, without redemption. Unbroken truce of the fair the while through Erin and Alba alike, while folk went in and came out without any rude hostility. And this finest fair was being held by the fairy host, a fair every single year by the fair Bollock, who were there, by the Tuatha Danann, and by the children of Mill thereafter. And the white-sided Tailtiu left her then, and uttered in her land again the true prophecy, that so long as every prince should accept her, the land of Erin should not be without perfect song. Now, that's not the only time a bard, druid, or poet ever got a great old tale from beyond the grave. But sure, they're all stories from another day. So I hope you enjoyed that story and the true telling of Tailtiu, and gives you a little insight into the kind of the Éineacht, the fair that was being held there and the importance of it. And this fair became the Lunasa Games, and it was held in honour of Tailtiu at Lunasa at the Harvest Festival at or around the sites of the mounds at Tailtown in County Meath. And it's not held there anymore. And I don't know if the princes of Erin remember the name of Tailtiu or speak it fair, but I will. Slán go fóill. See you in the next video.